Hey everybody, welcome back to another video on this channel, and today we implement a new logo for the Nux.com website. Here we go. Yes, you heard it correctly. Today we don't focus on one single topic. We will implement something with Nux on the Nux.com website. Fingers crossed that the PR gets merged. We'll see. And we'll use lots of things. We'll use the router. We use a new logo. As said, we will use a cookie and put all these things together. But what we're talking about, well, let's have a look. This is the lovely logo we're trying to implement in the Uvu style, pretty popular by now and made by fellow community member Icarus GK, aka Roger. So that wonderful person created logos for the Vue.js community, also Vite, and also Nux.js. So the idea is to implement it, and let's have a look how other pages did that. We do it in a similar fashion, and then we'll contribute to the open source project from cloning the repo, installing dependencies, changing things, and sending an APR. And the first thing to do is taking a look at how other frameworks and other maybe bundlers, dev servers implemented that. So let's have a look at Vue.js.org. And if we add !Uvu here, we will see that logo coming up here, right? We can remove that by, I guess, we can just remove the Uvu thingy here. That's one way of doing it. For Vite, same idea. Vite also has the Uvu parameter to see the logo over here. And if we remove it, it's gone. Interestingly, I would go a bit further and say, why not having that active by default as long as you have it enabled? And of course, if you want to, you could disable it as well. So let's get started. Let's clone the repository, then figure out how we do it. As I said, maybe the cookie would help us there, and add the logo. Of course, we straight away go to the Nux repository, but to the Nux.com repository, because that's the website for the Nux.js project itself, right? While the doc content lives in Nux/Nuxt, the website itself, that one lives in Nux.com. And what we can do is we can just pull out the repository, say, okay, we copy this here, clone through GitHub. You see, I'm not logged in. Everybody can do that if you want to, with any kind of project on GitHub, of course. And then we go into our VS Code and we'll make sure we actually get the thing up and running. That means we go into our terminal, or if you use Git not on the command line, it's also fine. We use git clone and then copy paste it, or we use GCL if you use OMyZ shell and then clone the whole thing. For me, we can just say like, let's put it in a different folder. So Nuxt website, let's say, and it will run through all that. Of course, I did it already because, well, nobody likes to wait, right? Right? Of course, then we have to install the dependencies itself. So if we have a look what dependencies are there, well, we see a pnpm log. So we want to use pnpm. Pnpm should be installed through Corpac. So we can say Corpac enable, but it's already there. And then we do pnpm I. And it tells us, okay, it's already there. It's already up to date, because also that I did in advance. But that's all. So that will work. Now, of course, we start the dev server, pnpm dev, and we'll see what's happening now. And in our browser now, we have the Nux site up and running on localhost 3000, right? Looks pretty similar to Nux.com website because it's literally the code running there. Okay, so let's close the rest. And also the actual website, or maybe let's leave it open as comparison, but move the localhost over there. And now we want to enable the logo, so we want to put it somewhere here, I guess. Let's play around and see how things work. But of course, that means let's go back to the code and implement it. The first thing to do is, of course, move the PNG over to the public folder so it can be accessed. I think we can leave it on the top level. The logo and the icon are also here, so that's fine. And now we want to do things. So the first thing we want to do is we probably want to open the index.vue over here, which is the main page. So if you write, I don't know, we see already the intuitive Vue framework. Let's add test on there. See test the intuitive Vue framework there. So here we know we're in the right file and that works. Of course, we could also use the dev tools to make sure we know where we are. But in this case, we found our way already. So what's next? Well, as I said, we wanted to place the logo there. So how do we do that? Of course, the idea is we can just say like, okay, you know what? In here could possibly work. Let's use an image tag. But everybody using images on a regular base knows, okay, we definitely need some optimizations for different sizes and so on and so on. So let's cover that in a bit. First, let's use here uvu.png. We added it to the public folder, right? Which means, well, it's directly mapped to domain, so we can just use / and then the image name, and then we're good to go. Let's save it as is and go back to the browser, and we see, ooh, it's there, but it's also big. That doesn't really align with what we need, but we're getting there. Next, of course, use an alt tag. So let's say alt Nuxt logo in uvu style. We could also say, yeah, like we can set the area role, so it doesn't matter. I think I'm fine with the alt tag here, but if you think there's a better option, send in PR, always valuable. Okay, so the next thing is we would like to limit that size-wise. So let's say the width, well, what is the width of it actually? That's pretty big. So let's say the width to, I don't know, let's do 445, something like that might be fine. If we go back now to the browser, we'll see, yeah, that looks pretty fine. Now we just have to move it to the middle. And of course, to the middle, we do that by setting some classes. So let's use some good old Tailwind here. Say, let's do Amex Auto and see how that behaves. Pretty well. Now a little bit of spacing, like to the top and bottom would be nice. So you can also do that by setting up MT16, MB16, or just like MY16. And the spacing is pretty okay. But now there's lots of space over here. That's not ideal, let's say. And yeah, let's maybe remove the space on top here a little bit, just a tiny bit, and see how that will work. So on top here, it's probably this component. So let's see if we say we set on MD screens, on screen with medium and higher. Let's just change it, and that looks a bit better. Okay, so far so good. Now we have implemented it here. It doesn't look that bad, but we need to consider a few more things. We have to enable and disable it, and we also want to do that during SSR. So we make sure there's no flickering or anything. That would be great. That means we need the route for sure to say like, okay, if you write $uvu, it should be enabled. And maybe you can also just keep it enabled the whole time unless you write $uvu equals false. So, or like 0 or whatever. Let's tackle that. Then do the image optimization. And then it looks pretty smooth. Then we can submit our PR. To deal with the logic, we start with a very simple way of saying, okay, we have some kind of, let's say, const is uvu enabled, and this is just to compute it for now, which says it is true. Let's just test it, right? And then if uvu is enabled, of course, we want to set all these things. So we start here because we set a class over here, right? It's always nice to have the diff check here. So let's say class, and we say, you know what? MD-PT24 should be set if is uvu enabled. And let's fix this. So we have a nice line. Okay, this doesn't look like a nice line break, but oh yeah, because double inlines, it's not a good idea. Here we go. And of course we start over here because we already changed that. That's what the blue git diff here shows us. And we added a class here. So let's add another class tag here and say, you know what? MD-PT24 is set when is uvu enabled. Nice. Then of course, do some auto fixing and we're good. And that is this. And then this image here should only be shown, of course, also with VF if uvu is enabled, mainly because otherwise it wouldn't be in the DOM with vshow, so we don't want it either. And then we're looking pretty nice. So let's have a look if that actually works, because now it's on, works. Let's disable it real quick. Just changing it to false, and it's gone. Perfect. Okay, so toggle, not a big deal. Now let's toggle it based on the route query, right? So if we write $uvu, it should be working. Let's do that step. And also this is too complicated. We use the route from useRoute and say if route.query, and we say if there is uvu in the route.query, well, then we say, let's define it before, of course, maybe top here. Then we say is uvu enabled .value, because it's a ref, right? We set it to true. So far, so good. It's a computed, so we can't really do that. Let's do ref for now. That's a good point. But we need to compute it later on. And yeah, okay, we fixed the parent here. And now we can try it. So let's say $uvu. And it's loading, and it's there. Wonderful. Okay, and if we remove it, it's gone again. So that's how it should be. Another thing we could do is take exactly this Boolean expression and put it here in the default value of the ref, put route on top, and this should also work fine. But because the default is only what we need, we only do the hard reload. We don't change the query on self-navigation. But we need a cookie to save that, right? So if we enable uvu once, then it should be enabled the whole time unless we change that. So let's revert that structure and let's fix this. So what we want to do here is we create a cookie const useCookie is useCookie, right? I think we can even type it here, say uvu mode. And here we say, okay, the default of it should be false because, well, we don't necessarily want to set the uvu mode by default. We can try to do it to true by now. But like why not true, right? That should work. And what we can do now is uvu enabled could just be, it doesn't even have to be a ref because we only change it here. So let's say we have the route and in the end we say if uvu is in route, change the cookie value, and then we set is uvu enabled is just useCookie.value. That's it. So what we could do here to change the cookie value is if, let's say, 0 and should be a string, and false, if they include route.query.uvu, and I'll cast that as string because it could also be string array, but it's fine. If that's the case, so let's say const disable uvu. So if the routes, because if the query param exists, the uvu query param, but it's 0 or false, a string, because URL params are always just strings, then we say useCookie.value equals disable uvu. So if uvu, the actual query param includes 0 or false, then it should be disabled. Otherwise it should be enabled. And then we just use that. And that's it. So pretty straightforward. It wouldn't be wrong if you do a computed here, right? We can just say, okay, this can be computed if you want to, but we don't need the reactivity because we never change the cookie afterwards. So we can even leave it like that. It's just important to note that this is then only the Boolean, it's the value, it's not the ref. And you, let's say, lose reactivity here, but we do it on purpose because we don't need to be reactive after that. The value is then set in stone. Okay, let's have a look. And that works, that looks great because we have the default to true. The last thing to do is that we now have to say, okay, disabled. So we could say disabled here. That means the value should be false and otherwise true. Or we could just say this negates to not disable uvu. Or we say, you know what, let's just name it enable uvu. And we negate this here and just leave it in there. So then we make sure that the values are actually correct. And let's have a look on our localhost side and see if it works or not. And the default, as we see here, works, it's true. Now we can say, okay, uvu equals 0. And now if we refresh, it's gone. And also now if we remove that, because the cookie has been set, it will stay at false. Because if we check here, our storage tab in Firefox or Chrome cookies, we see uvu mode is false. If you would set the uvu mode to true here and refresh, then it would be back. So that works. Last thing to do, of course, set the default here to false because we don't really want the uvu mode to be enabled by default. But we can easily do it now by saying, okay, we write $uvu and the things should be there. And it works. Awesome, great. One more thing though, optimizations, because it's like the image is very important. It's very prominent, it's above the fold. And well, we don't want to waste any resources. So let's optimize it real quick. Luckily, this is pretty easy thanks to the NuxtImage component that's already used on Nux.com. So let's move it to NuxtImage here. Let's close that. And we have the width, we have the height. That's, well, we don't have the height yet. Let's see, what is the height here? Let's check. The height is inspector 255.867. So let's do 256. So let's set the height here to 256. Wonderful. Now this should go on in the next line. That's also fine. And we can do a few more things. So we have an option called sizes. And in the sizes option, we say, okay, on medium screens or above, it should be 455 pixel. But what's the default? Because if we have a look in the browser once again, here and we open mobile, right, like this, that's, well, it's pretty big, but it shouldn't be. Let me see if I can open this iPhone SE. Here we go. So if we now have a look, it's way smaller than the actual image, right? It's only 343 x 192. And with NuxtImage, we can say, let's take the 343 as the smallest size. It shouldn't be a problem. And say, okay, by default, 343 pixels, on medium devices and higher, 455 pixels. And this should cover all our cases. And if we now have a look in the browser once again, then we will see, okay, nice. It shows the image with the right one, right sizes. The actual image, of course, is still the uvu one. It's fine, but this one should be the smallest, right? So the source set is given here, saying, okay, it's all generated, right? And the smallest one is the 343 x 193 uvu PNG. And the good part is this is all generated on build time, right? So if we can even take this here and open it over here, remove the set, and boom, it's there. Of course, it's smaller. Obviously it is, right? The gray background is just from my browser rendering that. But now we have it nicely performance optimized. And that's all you need to do. Of course, if you didn't use the NuxtImage component yet, then install it. It's really easy to use, as mentioned, and we're good. Now, one last thing. We want to create the PR because we implemented our changes. They seem to work. Let's share them with the others. For this, of course, we open our wonderful terminal, or you can do it actually. You can also do it here on the side, right? The first thing is we want a new branch. So that's very important because right now in the main branch, that's not ideal. We can create a new branch. There are lots of, so let's say feature uvu logo, something like that. Okay, we create the branch here. It's not a problem. This will just execute it, right? And we can even say, we could have said switch to branch straight away, right? So that will also be fine. Oop, there we go. And now we can say, okay, in our commit message, let's say feed add uvu logo and logic. So we commit that, we publish the branch, and after publishing, we can create a pull request. So in case you do that, of course, you might not have the right to create the branch because you might not have the right to commit to the repository in a way. But it's not a problem. The good thing is you can just fork it. So let me quickly show how that works. And of course, it would be good to be logged into GitHub. You have that fork button here, you just click it, and then you have your own instance of it, of Nuxt or Nuxt.com. In our case, you can just fork it. But as I have the rights to commit to branches there, I don't need it. And otherwise, the steps would be pretty much the same anyway. So you just click on the fork button, and you have your own repository. And then once again, you go to the little green button here, copy that, and it wouldn't be Nuxt.com, Nuxt/Nuxt.com, but your username /Nuxt.com. So not a biggie, luckily. Let's finish up the PR. VS Code offers us to create a pull request straight away here from the command line. We can do that. You can also go to GitHub. That doesn't matter much. I'll do it here and say, okay, let's create that. Feed uvu logo to main. You can also use the upstream here one. And then you say feed add uvu logo and logic. You can explain here this PR adds the uvu logo when writing $uvu on the main page. A cookie is saved. Let's do a break. Cookie is saved. So the choice will be persisted. It can be disabled by writing /uvu equals false or /uvu equals 0. And we can just create a PR. And now we are waiting if someone merges or not. We have the overview here. We have the overview also on GitHub. So let's have a look how that looks like on GitHub and see how this is looking. And of course, if you're not logged in, it just looks like this. This PR adds it and so on. We have the file changes with our changes we had right here. And because I see we already spotted a little mistake. We forgot to actually change the class over here. So right now it's applied always. That's not good. So let's quickly go back here in the code and just find the MD PT24 here, quickly remove it. And we can just commit that as well, saying, okay, fix extra class or whatever. These commit messages are not that important. It's important what the PR does in the end. And now quickly we go back to the browser, we refresh it, and it's gone. It's all good. It's safe. And that's the whole thing. Maybe one more thing to add, actually. I will link the lovely Roger here. So he gets credits where credits are due. And that's it, right? So we're done with the PR. We implement the whole thing. We used useCookie, which is a composable from Nuxt itself to handle cookie values. We used the router. We used NuxtImage. So a variety of things to build a little tiny thing. Learned anything? Let me know in the comments if that was helpful, if you didn't know something before, or if you want to see something specific to implement. Don't worry, a new VOD for the social manager will also come soon. So we built our own association manager, continue to do that. But first, I'll go on a little bit of vacation. Of course, there will still be a video, but I might not be as responsive as usual. Nevertheless, hope to talk to you soon. Hope to see you soon. Drop me in the comments what you want to know, and see you next video. Next Friday, as usual. And of course, check out Deja Vu. You know it. Happy hacking.